Welcome. Thank you. Good to see so many people here. So this is going to be about the Liturgy of Holy Week starting tomorrow or tonight at the 5:30 Mass. I did wonder about getting out the missalettes for the various services coming up. Then I realised that, especially with Easter Vigil, there'd be so many words to plough through that probably isn't a good idea. I refer to the readings sometimes, but this talk is really about the structure of the week and uses some images as well as some words. And so I'm following this more or less, so you can take this away with you. I could, if I got organised, I think I may have said this last time and didn't do it, I could send the slides to people if they wanted to, or I could put them on the website, I suppose, it's the easiest way to do it. So, I've got this on, yes. We could spend the whole hour talking about this slide. I don't think that would be, it might be very interesting, but it might get a bit tedious after a while. So what are we doing in Holy Week? I managed to find 3 R's, then I tried to find 3 C's, but I could only manage 2. So, are we just remembering what happened to Jesus? Are we reenacting? That's slightly different. Are we reflecting on it? Are we celebrating? Are we proclaiming something? Are we perhaps allowing ourselves to be challenged? Of course, the correct answer, I think, is all of the above. And maybe more. Can anyone think of other things I haven't thought of? Not necessarily beginning with R or C. You might at the end, perhaps. Loving. Well, we're doing that all the time, aren't we? Not just especially in Holy Week, but thanks for participating, yes. Confirming. Okay, is that a sort of subsection of proclaiming, or... No, that's a good idea. Actually, I could have had another C. I hadn't thought of that. Thank you. So, excuse me, shall I just let me go back and rewrite this? So I put those at the top. Anyway, you can add confirming to that. Again, a sort of remembering. I mean, they merge into one another, don't they? The different things. So I've got them on the sheet at the top, so you can think about them later, or we could come back to them. But I just thought I'd start by asking that question: what are we doing? Okay? So we start tomorrow or tonight with Palm Sunday, and for each slide I've split it into its different elements, as you've seen there. What I've also done, which I haven't added here, is to extract some words or phrases or prayers from each particular feast in turn, which I think perhaps sums up what that particular day is about. I shouldn't say feast, I suppose. The feast is Easter, really. The other services are leading up to that. So the first thing we're doing is commemorating Jesus coming into Jerusalem. The palms he's treading on. He's putting down their cloaks as well. Sorry, wrong one. And people climbing up trees to get branches and coming into Jerusalem. It's the entry into Jerusalem. Jerusalem, of course, has an enormous significance, and particularly in somewhere like Luke's Gospel, since about chapter 9, everything has been directed towards coming to Jerusalem. That's where it's all going to happen. So Luke emphasizes the journey. He puts in geographical details, which the other evangelists don't do in the same way. But entry into Jerusalem is the first chapter, really. Jerusalem is where everything happens. Except, of course, the crucifixion, which happens particularly outside the city. That's where the shameful things happen. The executions happen outside the city. But Jerusalem, with the whole of the background of the Old Testament, becomes central to Jesus' journey. And of course, for us as Christians, we talk about the resurrection opening the gates to the New Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is still an absolutely central concept for us. It's not just, so again, we're not just remembering things, we're looking forward to, we're proclaiming that our belief in the New Jerusalem. So the second part, apart from the procession with palms, and in both churches we'll be starting outside and coming inside the church, and then the thing which distinguishes Palm Sunday from every other Sunday of the year is that we have the reading of the Passion according to the three different Gospels, Matthew, Mark and Luke, depending on which year we're in. So we're in year A at the moment, so tonight and tomorrow we'll be having the Gospel according to the Passion narrative according to Matthew. Good Friday is always the Passion according to John. We can discuss why that should be later perhaps. But each Sunday in turn, the 3-year cycle, has the particular evangelist with his particular focus. And then the Eucharist is obviously the second part. So this is a text particularly associated with Palm Sunday, either sung or said. The children of the Hebrews, carrying olive branches, went to meet the Lord, crying out and saying, Hosanna in the highest. So it's very much putting it in an Old Testament context, entering Jerusalem, and the king is coming, looking back at Psalms about the coming of the king. Hosanna, a Jewish word meaning just all hail. And of course we still sing it every time in the Sanctus. Just as we're coming up to the consecration of the Mass, we're greeting the Lord. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. So every time we come to Mass, because of the Sanctus, the Holy Holy, we're effectively remembering, reenacting, etc., celebrating Palm Sunday and what it represents. So, any questions so far on Palm Sunday or comments people like to make?
They're talking about olive branches, not palms.
Good point. Yes. That's the text from the Mass, though. That's interesting. Yes, I hadn't spotted that. Good. So, yes, olive branches traditionally means, well, the two particular. What's the first reference to olive branches in the Bible? No. Yes, the dove comes back with an olive branch. How it comes particularly to be associated with peace, I'm not quite sure, actually, thinking about it. There must be. I mean, olive oil represents sort of richness and good things, doesn't it? Oil and wine. But how it comes to be with peace, I don't know. And it's not really to do with peace on Palm Sunday, is it? Either in the original events or in the way we celebrate it now. And maybe that's why we have palms rather than... I'm getting ready. This is... I have to reread it again. I'm quite happy. Please, any opportunity you have to catch me out, please take it. Okay? Or to extend the context. Okay, anything else on Palm Sunday? We'll have to keep going. I suspect the time will go quite quickly. Now, the next service, probably not many of you have been to. I only went for the second time last year in all my years in the monastery. I hadn't been to the Chrism Mass, which only happens at the cathedral. I did have a year as a deacon in our parish, our then parish of Cheltenham. I went to Clifton Cathedral, which by chance is what we have here, for the Chrism Mass, and then last year I went for the first time, because back in the monastery, the local parish priest would go, but others wouldn't. So has anyone been to the Chrism Mass? Right. Oh, yes. More than once, or just, yeah? Yeah, right. So I was talking to Father David Hartley from Leamington, sent him an email yesterday and said, see you at the Chrism Mass. So virtually all the priests of the Archdiocese will be there, so it's quite an event. So the Archbishop celebrates the Mass in the cathedral, surrounded by the bishops, priests and deacons of his diocese. And what we have illustrated here is Bishop Declan Lang, who retired last year as Bishop of Clifton, And in front of him, sorry, that's not just about, are the three vessels containing the different oils used in the sacraments. The oil of the sick, which when we go to anoint people with the sick, that's the oil we use for that. The oil of catechumens, which is used in the first part of baptism. Those of you who have been to baptisms on Sunday Masses, here we greet the child at the door of the church, and then we give them the oil of catechumens. Of course, historically, the catechumenate was quite a long period. Could be years, being a catechumen, before you became the baptized. So the catechumenate is, for a baby, it's a very short period. The way we do it here, it's a week, I suppose, effectively. Then we have the actual baptism. Then chrism is used in baptism, confirmation, and one other, ordination of priests, and one other event. No, that's the oil of the sick. No. Doesn't happen very often. There have been two in my lifetime. Coronation, yes. The king is crowned with chrism. Not everybody knew that, did they? No. When it happened to Charles, I think part of that part was done behind a screen. I don't think it was obviously just a bit too Catholic for the BBC or whatever, for anyone. But chrism, and it's called the Chrism Mass. And I couldn't remember when I went to Clifton in 1976 as a deacon, but the bishop or the archbishop actually breathes over, very obviously, breathes into the mouth of the vessel containing the oil. It's really it's a bit pagan, I think, actually, but it's not. It's really sacramental. It's external. It's bodily. It's stuff, as many of our sacraments are. They deal with stuff and the breath. It's like in baptism. I always put in the prayer. There's a prayer in the baptism. You baptize the child, then you have the white garment, and you have the chrism, and you get the candle, and then there's, in the text, it always says prayer over the ears and mouth. Brackets, usually omitted in England and Wales. Why? Well, because I think, going back to what Jesus did, don't be offended, don't be sensitive to it, the priests originally would use spittle to touch the ear and the mouth. Now, even pre-COVID, that wouldn't have been. And Mark, as a safeguarding representative, is looking very grim at the moment. So maybe that's why it's omitted in England and Wales. But it's an example of the stuff of our sacraments. Yeah. So, anything else? And the final part, the priests of the diocese renew their priestly promises. Now, they're promising to be loyal to the bishop, so I keep quiet at that point. Not because I've got anything against the bishop, because my primary loyalty is to obedience, is to the abbot. So on Thursday, remembering the Last Supper. So I put in remembering that time, but as I put here, I think, on the notes, remembering, see above, it could be any of the reenacting, reflecting, etc. But just for shorthand, remembering the Last Supper. So, the washing of the feet. So this is the last time a Pope, this was in 2024, when Pope Francis anointed somebody else, a cardinal had to do it last year, so this year will be the first time Pope Leo will be doing it. He'll have done it in his own diocese before. But so this year, you see some parishes would get very twitchy about having priests washing the feasts of ladies. We've got one or two this year who will be ladies, who are ladies, and Pope Francis didn't have any problem about that. It'll be interesting to see what Pope Leo does. I'm sure people will be taking notes and drawing conclusions, possibly hasty ones. So the washing of the feet is part of remembering the Last Supper. And the institution of the Eucharist is obviously remembering the Last Supper as well. The institution of the Eucharist. That's why the priests are all gathered. I should have said the Chrism Mass in the Missal, in theory, is done on Maundy Thursday as well. because it goes with the institution of the Eucharist in the evening, but because everywhere it's just completely impractical for priests to be in two places at once. The Chrism Mass is usually held on the Wednesday, but strictly speaking, by the Missal, it should be done on the Thursday, but I don't think it is done. Maybe it is in Rome, I don't know. So this is a picture of the Last Supper, which I came across quite recently. This is no, it's not Compton Verning, where is it? It's at Upton House, which is quite near here, which has got a fantastic collection of old master paintings. So you see it, Jesus at the end of the table, unusually, and the disciple John, the beloved disciple, is actually had his head resting in his lap. So, and oh look, there's someone without a halo. Who could that be? But I thought it was an interesting way of portraying, normally, Leonardo da Vinci, Jesus in the centre. Right? That's more normal, but this is quite usual. So, obviously, the Last Supper, the washing of the feet, the Eucharist. Or, are they the same thing? Yeah, it's interesting to have them both together, I think. And then the final element of Maundy Thursday, so when we, after communion, the Blessed Sacrament is taken from the altar and put in the altar of repose, which is, I can't remember, it's here, it's that one, isn't it? Yes. So we use the small, we happen to have a smaller tabernacle there. So we have a small procession with, I'll be holding the communion from, consecrated at the Mass, with candles all around me, and we'll deposit there, and that's where we have the watching. We don't have it till midnight, we have it till 10 o'clock. So, but two things going on. Remembering, we're still talking about remembering. So here is Bellini's picture of the apostles asleep and Jesus praying there in the to these angels carrying a chalice and the cross. I think there's a chalice there, I'm not sure actually. Sometimes, because of course Christ asked that this chalice be taken from him. So the chalice represents the suffering that is to come. But in this case it's slightly more elaborated by the artist, to have the cross as well. Jesus reflecting on what's going to happen, and the disciples, of course, are all well asleep. But look in the distance, the band of soldiers, led by Judas, or guided by Judas, are on their way. But as far as we're concerned, we're remembering this, but we're actually adoring, watching with the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. So the two are together. And the text for that, during the washing of the feet, ubi caritas is the Latin phrase, the name of the Latin chant. In English, where true charity is dwelling, God is present there. So the symbol of the washing of the feet is, of course, an extraordinary example of the ministry of love and of charity. So that's this. The first quote is representing the washing of the feet and the institution of the Eucharist, and then could you not stay awake for an hour? That's actually not used in the text of Maundy Thursday, but that is the implication. We're remembering again, reenacting the fact that the disciples fell asleep. So to try and share with Jesus what he was going through, the agony in the garden, and trying to do what the apostles were not able to do, we try and stay awake while we're watching in front of the Blessed Sacrament. So that's the structure of what's happening on Maundy Thursday. Any challenges or questions about that so far? Yes, sorry, we should use the... Do you want another job if you can run around with this? Okay, is this? Yes. If you take that to Terry back there. Terry, yeah?
I believe that the procession from the altar to the altar of repose reenacts and remembers the journey Jesus would have taken from the place of the Last Supper to the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yes, certainly, yes. Good point. In fact, do we usually just go across? We do go around. Okay. My memory is hopeless. This is the second time I've done Holy Week here, but I've forgotten so much about it. I was so new and bewildered last year, but now, of course, I know it all. So if we do, that's good that we go the long way around. Yes. Any other comments or questions about Maundy Thursday? Does it have any particular, going back to those seven now, original questions at the top? In some of the things, we're probably doing more remembering, and sometimes we're doing more confirming, more proclaiming. I always think Maundy Thursday is somehow more sort of intimate in a way. It's more internal somehow. There's a question of that? Yes, we're coming home.
Father, I just wanted to ask, we call it Maundy Thursday, and that's an old corruption of Old English. What they call it everywhere else?
Holy Thursdays, it's the Maundy word comes from mandatum.
Yes.
The Latin word mandatum, which is... you're asking what else is it called?
The rest of the church.
Well, the Anglican Church call it Maundy Thursday because the King distributes the Maundy. What's the function of that? Why is Maundy money associated with?
Was it the third in peace in the story?
I hope not. Personally, I think it's a substitute for kings and queens who didn't want to wash their subjects' feet, and so they gave them money instead. I think it's probably that. So it's another act of charity. Yes, oh, sorry, it was Leo at the back first. Oh, okay. Liv, back to your mother. You probably think she doesn't need a microphone, but no, sorry. Your mother wants to go on. Yes? You were going to say?
No, I didn't know. I was telling to go to Leo.
Oh, right. Okay. Any more? Oh, sorry, yes, Jacob. You better stay on your feet.
I was just thinking, in Gethsemane, it's one of Jesus' most terrifying moments because he understands what he has to do, but he is completely terrified. I was wondering, is there anything we do to reenact or remember that moment?
I suppose the idea of watching with the Lord, we are trying, again, this coming back to reenacting again, I suppose. We're trying to put ourselves in a sort of Jesuit, the Ignatian practice, practiced by the Jesuits and promulgated by the Jesuits, is to put yourself into the picture painted by the Gospels. So I suppose we're meant to put ourselves in the place of Jesus. Or to ask ourselves whether, in fact, part of us is also Judas, or part of us, perhaps most of us, is the disciples falling asleep. So we put ourselves in the picture, and if we can, I suppose, we should try and put ourselves into the position of Jesus, horrified at the prospect of what's going to happen, and asking if the chariot can pass him by. So I think it's again, going back to what I was saying about more intimate, it's a more emotional time, really. Well, that's what Good Friday is, of course, is as well.
I suppose the Thursday is more like anticipation for what's happening on Good Friday.
Yes. And again, I suggested that the institution of the Eucharist and the washing of the feet are one and the same thing, but so is the crucifixion, in a way, the ultimate giving, the ultimate act of love, I suppose. So it's so good if people can come to all the services, because the total experience of going, the total remembering, the reenactments, the reflecting, makes sense if you go to everything. Now, obviously, I realise people can't necessarily do that, but for the parish as a whole, even if not every member can be there, but the parish, with the parish priest, goes through that whole experience. So it's being remembered, reflected on, by the group to which you all belong. even if you individually can't be there for one particular service because of whatever, childcare or travel, work, whatever. Leo, yes?
Well, sorry, oh, blimey, that was loud. Sorry, on that point, it sort of reenacts the path of the disciples, because it takes them event after event after event to actually finally come to an and it probably won't be until Jesus comes back.
Yes.
But it's a progression of understanding, and I suppose that's what we're
true.
journeying through here.
That's our journey. It's all about journeying, yes, certainly. And the journey is helped by the liturgy, including processions, whether it's the Palm Sunday procession coming in, or the taking the best sacraments from the altar of the Mass to the altar of repose, or on the Easter Vigil. Well, also one of the old words, English words used for the adoration of the cross on Good Friday is the creeping to the cross. Again, Terry, did I do that last year? Did I progress to the cross myself, lying down, or? Huh? I forgot. Oh, right. Make sure I don't forget this time. You know who runs this parish, really, don't you? Yeah. Terry and Ashley, basically. But anyway, there are lots of different processions, and then on the Easter Vigil, there's the procession of the Paschal Candle into the church. You know, there's yet another procession, really. Okay, so we'll move on to Good Friday. So Good Friday, as I put on the somewhere, have I? No, I haven't. I've put it on it comes on the slides. What is different about Good Friday, apart from what actually happens, what is different about Good Friday and Holy Saturday compared to every other day of the year? There's no Mass. Okay? Sorry?
It's the service of the Mass. You're remembering Jesus, but we're not actually going to Mass to pray, so we're doing a service because he is actually not actually here now. He's only here in the spirit, but not in the body.
Yes, that's a good point. Yes. So, sorry, we should have given you a microphone. But that's the reason, really. Yes, we're marking this as two. And there's an extraordinary reading, which is in the Divine Office, about, nobody knows who wrote it. In the book it says from an ancient manuscript. And it starts something like, what is happening today? It talks about the emptiness of Holy Saturday until you get to the vigil in the evening. But the day itself is liturgically just completely blank. It's quite extraordinary, really. And after Good Friday, of course, the altar is, after Maundy Thursday, the altar is stripped, as if it's not going to be used in that same way again. So, Good Friday service is not Mass, and it consists of 4 different elements on the sheet there. Those of you who attended the talks last year on the cross and the crucifix will know this is one of my favourite images. There's just two images from a little ivory box which is in the British Museum, although the sides are displayed separately, but they formed a box, and these 3, Finlay and Becky, went to see it at the British Museum. I told everybody to go to the British Museum just to see this, and they were the only people who went. So you need to learn a bit about obeying the parish priest. But it's extraordinary. These things originally are only 4 inches high. Okay? The figure of the crucifixion comes from Rome. It's in the British Museum now. It's probably the first illustration of the crucifixion. There were figures of the cross before, but not of Christ on the cross. I could say a lot about that, but just like to emphasize that it's a fascinating piece, and I love introducing people to it who don't know it. Christ is on a cross which has got splayed feet. It's more like a tree, that it's growing, but it's not. It's the work of a carpenter. It's been shaped. So the living Christ, with his eyes open, not bowed down in suffering, not twisted, as is often the case with later crucifixes, but really heroic stance, compared to Judas, who's on a tree which has got branches and even a bird feeding her chicks in a nest. So it's a living tree with an extraordinarily dead, this is only 4 inches high, a hanging of Judas from that tree. It's a credible representation of a body hanging, absolutely lifeless and dead, just dead weight, literally. So the contrast in the one panel is, I've never seen any other picture which has the triumphant Christ ruling from the cross with the dead Judas in the same frame. Then in addition, the first one, you have Pilate washing his hands there. Jesus, again, an upright Jesus, carrying a cross like a standard, or a staff of victory, and being shown the way by a Roman soldier. Who are these? There's the cockerel. That gives a clue to who these two people are. Peter and... what's she doing? Pointing out, asking what question? Who is it? Well, yes, exactly. So what's she called? Who is she? She's referred to as the maidservant. Yes, the maidservant by the fire, saying, "Aren't you one of them?" So lots of the bits of the story all into one frame. Anyway, this is just background to the first part of the liturgy on Good Friday is the liturgy of the Word, and the first long reading from Isaiah first, the suffering servant, and the Passion, according to St. John, always St. John, and that's a major part of the service on Good Friday, the liturgy of the Word, the story of the Passion. I'm not quite sure sometimes when I found myself thinking, would it not be more effective if the Passion as it's read on Good Friday was the only time we heard the Passion? In some ways, it's slightly odd that we anticipate it by telling the whole story, apart from the resurrection, on Palm Sunday as well. I don't know if anyone's got an answer to that. I'm sure there is an answer, but it's quite interesting that it almost breaks the dramatic progression. The Palm Sunday could just have been about the entry into Jerusalem, and then we just get on with Mass. And in fact, there are two Gospels. For Palm Sunday, I should have mentioned this before, we actually read the Gospel of Palm Sunday outside the church before we begin the procession in with the palms. And then we have the Passion. Of course, last Sunday used to be called Passion Sunday. This is Passion Tide. But even so, just from a sort of dramatic, literary point of view, the build-up to the climax is slightly spoilt in a way, just from that point of view, in having the story of the Passion already read before Good Friday. I don't think that's heretical, but if it is, please don't. Oh, we're live streamed. Oh dear. Hello, if anyone's watching this live stream, including Albert Paul. There'll be a phone call in a minute. So, the second part of Good Friday is the solemn intercessions. For many of these pictures now, I show Archbishop Bernard in St. Chad's. So the solemn intercessions take the place of a deacon reads out, let us pray for whoever, the church, the state, the Jews, other Christians. So he does the introduction to each prayer. Sorry, where is he? There. And then the Archbishop says or sings the prayer itself. So instead of normally in Mass we have let us pray, then we have here at the moment we have a pause for silent prayer. For the solemn intercessions, so they're like reading prayers but more enhanced, expanded. So he strings out what we're going to pray for, pause, kneel down, that's what we do usually, then stand up for the Archbishop or the parish priest saying the prayer itself. So that is quite solemn as well. Then the adoration of the cross. Again, this is taken from St. Chad's 2 years ago, I think. So I don't know if you can see it very clearly. The deacon there he's got an extremely tall cross, which is processed through the church. and used to be unveiled. They don't veil theirs. At Dowie, we still veil the cross and gradually reveal it. And then the cross, the crucifix, is held by servers, and here's the bishop. The archbishop has taken off his vestment, and he venerates the cross himself. So for everybody to do that, that takes quite a long time. It's another procession as well, isn't it, of the people coming up to venerate the cross as well, and then replicating the later, not really procession, but it's more like a queue, I suppose, for coming up for communion. But it's on Good Friday we come up twice. And of course on Good Friday, anyone in the church can venerate the cross. So those who are doing RCIA at the moment can venerate the cross, even though at the moment, until the Easter Vigil, they don't receive communion. But veneration of the cross is something that everyone in the church can do, even captain. Right? And then the final part of Good Friday is communion, using the hosts that have been in the tabernacle, the altar of repose, since Maundy Thursday night. So the texts I've got for this are the texts that the deacon or the priest says as he brings the cross up the church. Behold the wood of the cross on which hung the Saviour of the world, and the response, come, let us adore him. And then during that long time of veneration of the cross, a choir or people sing various things, including what are called the reproaches, where in the voice of Christ we're being asked, God is saying, how do we get to this? My people, what have I done to you? How have I grieved you? Christ speaking from the cross, how did it come to this? Answer me. Quite a powerful texts. What have I done to you? How do we end up here? So that's quite a deep question which we're asked as we come up to venerate the cross. So, Good Friday. Any more questions, comments, interjections on Good Friday? Yes, take it, please, Liv.
I just had one comment / question. My family in Mexico have just had supposedly a shard of the original cross where Jesus died come to their church, and they all adored it. My grandmother said that it was verified that it was, but there's a small skeptic part of me that's questioning, is that possible? Do you know if it's likely that was actually?
Well, we have a relic of the cross at Dowie at the Abbey, in a wonderful little reliquary made of crystal. I don't think we've announced this yet, but we have once a year we have a mass in the Guild Chapel. Well, do you know what the Guild is called? Proper name for the Guild? The Guild of the Holy Cross. So, basically, Stratford was run. Now it's run by the council, but the town trust still does quite a lot as well. But the ancestor of the town trust was the Guild of the Holy Cross, which ran Stratford and ran the school. It was separate from the parish church, had its own chapel, the Guild Chapel. The officials called the Guild of the Holy Cross. And so this year, instead of having the Catholic Mass in the Guild Chapel in July, which we had last year, we're going to have it on September the 14th, which is the Feast of the Exaltation of the Cross. And I'm hoping to persuade the abbot that I can borrow the relic of the True Cross for that Mass. We've also got the parish priest of the Priory of the Holy Cross, Leicester, the Dominican Richard Ainsworth, who came last year in Advent. He's going to come on and preach at that day because his church is the Holy Cross. So there's a great devotion to the Holy Cross. In fact, a few weeks ago, I stopped at Abingdon on the way up here from Dowie, and there, as well as the Abbey, there was a fraternity of the Holy Cross there as well. So it's a huge devotion. In fact, the parish church in Abingdon is called St. Helen's, and St. Helena, the mother of the Emperor Constantine, was the founder of the True Cross. from which relics have gone all over the world ever since. Yes, there is a huge question about the authenticity of all of them. It has been calculated that if all the relics of the Holy Cross were put together, it would be as big as a ship. You know? So, but does that matter? I don't know. You know, it's the... Well, loads of fishes, fair enough. That's the holy answer, yes. But it may well be that, in fact, the veneration given to, we don't worship our statues. We venerate them, which is different. So we don't worship the cross. Whether it is authentic is not as important as the attitude of us as we approach it, I would say. I think that's probably a fairly standard answer. So whatever skeptics like Jacob come up with that, we have an answer for you, Fair enough?
Okay.
Yes?
I just had one other, for the 7 words, I thought confessing was another C word that we could use.
Confession.
Confessing. As
Confessing.
Like confessing the
yes.
story.
Yes, true. Thank you. Please write it into your sheets. With confirmation, I'm confessing. Yes, Marie?
Just since moving to Stratford, I really love the ecumenical service in the morning on Good Friday, where we all go in procession.
Yes.
It's kind of part of my triduum.
I should have, maybe, yes.
Into
I should tell you, I suppose, the Walk of Witness this year, I'm giving the talk, in fact. So I hope you'll all turn up. Well, quite a few people do turn up anyway, don't they? So I'll judge whether there are more or less because I'm talking. Sorry, Liv, at the back. Liv. Sorry, microphone, yes. In a minute,
Sorry,
yeah.
Terry's just said it's on the newsletter.
Okay,
We're just
can you use the
meeting in a different place this year. We're not meeting down at Bancroft.
That's right. They couldn't get the road closures, so it's starting outside the Boston Tea Party and going down Henley Street, which is pedestrianised. Is that what you were going to say? Okay. It's in the newsletter this year.
I think maybe one thing we've missed that people find moving is on Maundy Thursday the altar is stripped, so from then on till and all through Good Friday it's completely bare.
Yes. That's very much part of the total experience of the whole thing. Yes. Yes, Helen. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to mention is about 10 years ago, while I was still living in London, I went on Good Friday and watched the reenactment of the Passion at Trafalgar Square
right.
by the Wintershall Players,
Yes.
and that was just incredible. The bit where he's obviously taken off for scourging, he's taken off behind a screen, but you can hear
Right.
the noises, and that makes you jump to understand what it must have felt like for him.
Yes.
But it was a very special day.
Well, as I said in the newsletter this week, if you've seen it already, my experience of going to Bourne for this last Wednesday was extraordinary, and including the scourging. The thing written by Joe Boyce, who I put in the newsletter as Joy Boyce, which may have been a Freudian slip. But Joe Boyce, who some people know, I think, who used to work at Solly House and has composed this amazing thing 30 years ago, and it was done at Symphony Hall. It was quite fantastic. But I had another experience similarly at Lourdes. I may have told some people about this before, I'm not sure. If you've been to Lourdes, on the hill, on the mountain, behind the grotto, there's the Station of the Cross, life-size Stations of the Cross. The group I go with, HCPT, in fact, stopped going on. It was too dangerous with wheelchairs and things. And it was a real, perilous journey to take wheelchairs up this really steep, rocky, unpathed mountains road. And the groups tend to sort of get the traffic jam, the group in front of a particular station, and their chaplain will be saying something to them, and there's another group still waiting to come. So you witness what other groups are saying about it. And there are notices saying, don't climb onto the stations. You've got to keep down on the path. Well, in this case, there was a blind boy who had escaped from his carers, He was about 6 or 7 perhaps. He got up onto the station where Christ is put on the cross. And you can see he was just exploring with his hands what was happening in this particular statue. And they're extremely elaborate. There'll be, I don't know, 4 or 5 soldiers standing by. Christ himself, the cross. Is that me? Us? Rain? Rain. Right. So soldiers or carpenters nailing Christ to the cross. So you see this little boy working out what was happening, tracing the arm of the soldier, working out, feeling that he had a hammer in his hand, or the hammer was just about to go into the nail in Christ's hand. And his vision, his realization of what was being portrayed was extreme to him. He saw that nailing to the cross far more deeply and realistically, effectively, than any of us watching with our 100% vision did. And everyone was just blown over, quite extraordinary. Rather like the experience in... I've never been able to go to that, partly because I'm always in church, I suppose, But I'm aware of it. Has anybody else been to that? What's it called? Winchelsea? Wintershall players. They're from Surrey, and they do it every year now. They do it at Wintershall as well, I think, don't they? Then on Good Friday they do it in Trafalgar Square. Yes. I think the Passion came first, probably. I think so. Yes. Anything else on Good Friday? We better move on. Right. Now we come to the Easter Vigil, which has, as you'll see from the sheet, has 5 different elements. I put it on the sheet, Easter Vigil and Easter Sunday, but the first 2 elements and the baptism itself, I suppose, only happen at the vigil. So we gather outside there. Here, this is at Birmingham again. See the bishop's in the background. And the deacon has the job of trying to light... They're being very brave there. They seem to have the actual candle, which they're trying to light from the fire. My experience as an MC saying that's very risky indeed. But I think it's rather like the spit. It's a very physical, earthy sort of thing, a very human moment, and people giggle a bit, but I don't think it matters when, the candle, they try once and the candle goes out and they have to go back again. Gathered round the fire, everyone expectant, looking at the fire, is it going to take? And it's windy and it's rainy or whatever. So there's a lot of tension and focus, and more often than not, it doesn't work first time. But I think that's all part of the human celebration of what we're doing. We're doing it ourselves. It's not a Hollywood production. It's not something you can do hundreds of takes until you get it right, and the audience only sees the final version. It's actually happening in front of us, so it's very real and immediate. And the symbolism is fantastic. And when we were checking on the time of what time we'd had the vigil, we had to take into account the fact that the clocks go forward tomorrow, and therefore look at the time of sunset. So the Easter Vigil should not take place before sunset. That's not just a rule for the sake of having a rule. That's because the effectiveness, the power of the symbol doesn't really work unless you're lighting a candle in the darkness. To do it, of course, many of us have lived through one liturgical reform in the 1970s. Some of us may remember the liturgical reform, the restoration of the Easter Vigil in the 1950s, which included, as far as I can't remember it, but the Easter Vigil happened at 10 o'clock in the morning or something, which was crazy. Not many people went to it, I think. I think that's right. It certainly wasn't at night. So the first part is the blessing of the fire and the preparation of the candle. Then we have the singing of the exultet, the proclamation of we will rejoice in the Lord. And there you have the deacon holding the candle, and there's some light there. I'm not quite sure which stage that is at. But obviously you have the Archbishop holding his candle in the darkness, and I presume that's in the singing, listening to the Exultet. Sorry. And I hope we've got Johann, who serves, singing again. He did it last year, he does it really well. Then the liturgy of the Word. I've just isolated 3 readings: the Genesis, Moses parting the waters, the Red Sea, and of course the account of the resurrection itself. There are other readings as well, but I just a summarize of those. Now, in fact, there are 9 readings. We're just having 4, I think, partly because, well, this year, I would like to have more in some ways, but this year we've got 10 baptisms to have as well, so 10, yes. So, or 9 baptisms and 1 reception, I think, yes. So the liturgy of the Word is obviously greatly expanded at the Easter Vigil. And each reading has a responsorial psalm, and it has a prayer after it as well. So that's the unique thing about the readings at the Easter Vigil. There's a reading which incorporates the theme of the text. So its pattern is reading, psalm, prayer. Reading, psalm, prayer. Way through. And then the baptismal liturgy. So that's where we have these baptisms of the RCI candidates. We don't have total immersion, which would be interesting, I'm sure. If you want to have total immersion, you have to become a Baptist. And when was it? We went on a pilgrimage from here to Holy Trinity. We stopped at the Baptist church just around the corner, and they opened up the baptismal. Do you remember that? You were there, I think, weren't you? We saw the baptismal pool in which they go. And then after that, so if you don't have any baptisms, you still have the whole congregation renewing their own baptism. And the renewal of the promises, that element does happen on Easter Sunday as well, but not the actual baptisms. And then there is the normal Sunday Eucharist after that. And so the text we have the first text is a part of the text of the Exultet. On this, your night of grace, O Holy Father, accept this candle, a solemn offering, the work of bees and of your servants' hands, an evening sacrifice of praise, this gift from your most holy church. The whole text is extraordinary. I presume it's all in the Missalette, isn't it, the Exultet? And I always encourage people to take the Missalettes away with them. And the text of the Exultet is beautiful. You know, this night, this is the night on which this happened, this is the night on which that happened. It's a wonderful text. One year at the Abbey, Father Gabriel, who is an artist but also keeps bees, he actually decorated the Easter candle and made little model bees and put them on the candle as well as part of the symbolism. And then, so that's the first text points to the candle, the Easter candle. And I should have said more about the candle, I suppose. Are there some people here who've never been to an Easter vigil? That's good. Perhaps Max and Emily perhaps haven't. Rachel. Oh, you did? All right. So the experience of first the single, even how big ours is a comparatively small church, but in bigger churches as well, there's a time when it's just the Easter candle lit, and that comes in, and somehow the light of that one candle has an effect on the atmosphere in the feeling in the church. And then when everyone, first it's the priest and then other servers and things, but when everyone in the congregation is holding a lighted candle with the absolutely vital factor that each of those flames has come from the Easter candle. And occasionally, if you're an MC, you can get quite stroppy when you see people getting out their lighters and lighting their own candle. They really haven't got the point. The individual light has to come from the Easter candle itself. It's one light spread through the whole church. And then the effect of all the candles. I can't remember. Once again, I can't remember. Do we have any lights on? How do we do it? Do we do it in darkness? I mean, yeah, and then for the exultet, do we have a torch or something, or does Johan do it by candlelight?
Johan has a little light on the Lenten, which he used to be able to read.
So it is like a torch.
Yeah.
That's all we have then. So, but if we can do it I did it once by candlelight, I think. But sorry. All the way through the readings. Yes. Well, health and safety have something to say about that. Anyway, but also going back to, we should have said more about the candle. It's obviously a very vital part of it. Okay, that's the end of the Easter Vigil part. Any other questions about any memories of Easter Vigils or comments? Anything I've missed out or favourite bits that I haven't mentioned? Can you? Yeah. Take it. Did I? Oh. Was that because nobody else could manage it, or what? You could make up anything you like, you know. I can't remember these things. Sorry? Oh, right. So you were being polite and I took you at your word. Should we do that again? Shall I be surprised again? I don't think that's particularly symbolic, that the priest should light the fire. This is worrying. I really cannot remember that at all. Sorry? Yes. Okay, you can do that then this year. Maria's just volunteered to do. Right. Okay. So, anything else on the vigil? I know we didn't start quite on time, but it's nearly time for finishing now. So the final slide is this, which is a wonderful picture of the resurrection, I think, really. A little detail. Notice the guards, like the disciples at the agony in the garden, they're all asleep. So the guards will sleep. Whoops. Sorry. You notice that the guards are asleep, obviously, but also notice that the trees on this side are in winter, and the trees on this side are in leaf. So there's new life coming through Christ. It's such a bold stance, isn't it? You know, and yet the wounds are still there. That one it's in San Sepolcro, it's Piero della Francesca, I think, isn't it? I can't remember. I should know. So, that's the end of my presentation. Look back on the sheet, perhaps, see if you have any other questions. Well, should we go back to how do we get back to the original? No, what's happened? Sorry. Going back to those questions. after going through the process and adding confessing and confirming. Have we done a bit of those things through, as we've been talking through, do you think? Do any assume more importance and others less importance? Or have we got to try and... Quite often it's difficult in church or in all sorts of contexts to... For instance, when you're singing, this is particularly true in the monastery, you're singing, you've got to concentrate on your breath, you've got to concentrate on your lips and your teeth and your pronunciation, you've got to concentrate on the tune, the pitch of the tune, you've got to concentrate on loudness and softness, you've got to concentrate on whether you're singing the same note as the person next to you, and only then you can begin to concentrate on the meaning of the words you're singing. So, multitasking like that. So, we've got to multitask with all those as well, really, while we're doing this great... I put it in the reference, we tend to talk about Holy Week, but often it's been called the Great Week as well, which is, it's a good word, it's a good expression, I think, as well. So as we begin to embark on that great week, starting for some people Mass this evening, and others Mass tomorrow, we've got to try and do all those things at the same time. So it's quite a task, isn't it? Any other questions or comments? Yes, Rachel, can you...
Just a thought about the liturgical calendar. It's amazing how it kind of combines science and religion perfectly, because not only does it follow the mathematical reality of the planetary movement and the coming of spring, but it also follows the moral reality of the way of the cross and the truth of the resurrection.
That's really interesting, yes. Yes, I have just look in a diary to find out when Easter's going to be, but I'm sure cleverer people than me actually work it out from the phases of the moon, etc. Would we... Occasionally there's discussion about fixing the date of Easter. Would we, as a group or individuals, be upset if that happened? Do we value the connection with the moon and the sun and their movements, or are we a bit detached from that train of thought? So, well, the Passover is calculated in the same sort of way. Yes, but I think that's a good point. So the Christian world might decide to fix Easter, but then they wouldn't necessarily get the Jews to join in and say we'd also have Passover at that time as well. That would be quite a step, wouldn't it? No. I presume it is calculated in a similar lunar way or whatever, yeah. But, yes. So, that's what it is it? I'm sure you're right. We're not going to question you. No. Yes. But obviously, I don't know who really is the driving force. Is it just the Easter egg manufacturers would prefer to have a fixed date? Yes. Hang on. Just can you wait for microphones? Probably better. Sorry.
Sorry, the date of Easter is actually the biggest sticking point between the Eastern Church and the Latin Church, and on the union, and it's the one that they don't seem to be able to get over. And the Catholic Church, the Latin Church, has said to the Greek and the Orthodox churches, work it out and we'll go with you, more or less. But because there's so many different Orthodox churches, they can't work it out. And it's the biggest sticking point for even the Catholic Church, the universal Catholic Church being united in that way.
Yes, Doreen, front one.
it's interesting that in Jerusalem, the date of Easter is not the same as we have.
No.
It's usually a couple of weeks later. Yeah, yes. You'd think we'd be focused on the Holy Land, wouldn't you, really? Yes.
Yeah,
yes, but the Catholic Church is a couple of weeks later in Jerusalem as well. Because we were there one time for Palm Sunday, and it wasn't the same as our Palm Sunday. Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, we thought it was all the one sort of Roman Catholic type.
Let's not get into an Orthodox Catholic debate now, discussion. We'd like to end this talk united, if possible. Any other questions, comments? No? Thank you very much for coming. And thanks. Thank you. Right. Okay, thanks, Liv. Thank you. Should we have a test on that now, Finley? Should we have a test?